Welcome back to the arcade. Well, here we are again. I know I said in the last video that I was done with the Gorf stuff for a while, but I got putting away my boards and testing the ones that I had fixed and the ones that were good and putting them back into the card cages to get ready to put them in storage until I need them. And, well, I came across two boards that are still bad. And if I look at my list right here, I basically got two board sets that are good out of the three. But I still have one CPU board that's bad, board number 8. And that one, the Z80 and U15 Custom is good, but U21 was bad and U3 Custom was bad. I don't have any more U3 Customs. So I could take a custom out of one of the other boards and put it in here and troubleshoot the CPU. Maybe we'll do that, maybe we won't. But I had a RAM board, board number 14, and it said was bad with good ROMs and RAMs. Monitor blank makes pops in speaker like game resetting. Okay, so I decided to put that board in my test rig and fire it up and check it out, and here it is. And if we turn it on, sure enough, we got a blank screen, and see if you can hear the speaker. It's not turned all the way up. But I think you can hear, sounds like it's resetting, okay? So, what I did is what I always do. I went ahead and made up a oversized schematic, okay? And I also made up my logic probe sheets. Okay, so I went over this whole board with the logic probe, wrote the information down, and once again I transferred that information to the schematic. But before I did that, this board didn't have any ROMs in it because I took the ROMs out of this. Well, I'd burnt a couple sets of ROMs when I was initially going through these boards. This is one of the sets that I burned and was in one of the other good boards. So I pulled, well, first I made sure that the board that these ROMs were in worked and the game booted up to double check to make sure they were all good. So all 8 of these ROMs are good. So I pulled the ROMs out of the good board and put them in this board, and I get the same situation I'm getting right now. The board didn't work. Okay, this RAM board also has 8 2114 RAMs in it right here. I pulled all these RAMs out and checked them with my Inquisitor. All 8 of them are good. Okay. Also, what I did was when I had all these out, I took all 8 of the ROMs out, all 8 of the RAMs out. I took all of these are straps, or jumper straps that strap for the type of ROM and you got in here. Actually, 2 of them, this one and this one, are for the ROMs, and this one is for the RAM. Now, I don't know why you got one for the RAM unless I haven't heard anything about you could use a different RAM in here. Maybe you can, I don't know. But anyway, this one is, I think, primarily strapped for the RAM, or maybe it has something to do with strapping the RAM to the ROM, depending on which ROMs you use. That's probably more what it is. I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. But anyway, I know these are correct because they're the same as the other board, and I actually made these jumpers. I got a video. If you go back to last year when I was first working on these boards, I think I had a video where I showed how I made these. But anyway, I pulled all three of these out, and also have this one chip right here, which is U15, which is a 74 LS 244. That is socketed from the factory. So I pulled that chip out and tested it in the Inquisitor. No, not in the Inquisitor. I tested it in my Chinese IC tester. I'll get it straight in a minute. Trying to keep all this stuff straight in my head so I don't miss anything, but I probably will. But anyway, so in other words, all the socketed chips and the socketed jumpers I took out of this board, put it in the card cage, fired it up, and it's still doing the same thing. It's still resetting. So with doing that, in my mind anyway, I've eliminated the ROMs as the problem. I've eliminated the RAMs as the problem. I've eliminated this 244 and all these jumpers right here, which when you've removed the strapping jumpers, that disconnects some of the circuits on the board. So I'm pretty much left with all the ICs that are soldered onto the board. Okay. So that's where we came in with taking a logic probe and checking everything on the board and writing the information down, transferring it to the schematic. Now, I also did piggyback all these chips on the board and had no effect whatsoever. Now, there's only two chips that I don't have. U10, which is a 74 LS 133, and U16, which is an MC 14078. These are the only two that I don't have, but I did piggyback the rest of them, like I say, with no change. Okay, so let me real quickly go over what I've done so far as checking all these chips on the board. All right, we know all these are the 2114 RAMs. We know they're good. There's 4 ROMs here, and we got 4 ROMs here. We know they're good. All right, this is U15, which is socketed chip, and the 74 LS 244 at U15. I checked that. We know that's good. I'm also getting good readings on both I took readings from a good board and this bad board. And I'm getting good readings on this chip. I didn't take any readings on the ROMs or the RAMs because we took them out of circuit and we know they're good. Now, that leaves everything else. And what I did was, like all these right here, which are gates, which is U2, all these are U2, the first 4, then you got U3, then you got U4, and then you got U5, okay? But they're all separate gates, even though, you know, they're 4 to a chip. So I just tested them with the logic probe, and all of these came out good except for the ones that's got the yellow dots on them right here. And that is U3 had 1 too bad, or 2 that wasn't correct. U4 has 2 that's not correct. U5 was all good. So I took my little chart here, and these are right here, 2 input AND gates. And I got the little truth table to go by here. So I took the readings on the ones that were showing an inconsistency with the between the good board and the bad board, and even with the inconsistencies, they all checked out like they were, doing what they should do. Okay, but that doesn't mean there's not a problem with one of them. Also, I checked all these. Same thing. I got the truth table, the data sheets on all these chips. U14, that was good for both boards. The only difference is the readings here are interrupted because of the reset pulse. But if you didn't have the reset pulse, then, they would be basically the same reading. However, U13 right here had some inconsistencies. But even with the inconsistencies between the good board and the bad board, I still believe that the chip may be testing good. All right. U12 over here, which is the same chip of 74LS138. There's 4 of them on the board, by the way. This one is good except for pin 3. Has a different signal. This one up here, same chip, 74LS138. Has that same pin 3, same inconsistency. Both of them are tied to A13 with, I think it's an address line. Both of them. A13 is a problem. Okay. So we keep that in mind. Now, up here on U11 though, we have pin 11 had an inconsistency, and over here on the 74LS30, pin 11, which is tied to it, has an inconsistency. But that could be a problem because maybe, but even with the ROMs taken out of the board, it still had that same problem. So I don't know. I'm still thinking that might be okay. But something is causing address line 13 to be different or not right. Okay. So something on the address line is causing the reset, obviously. So what is it? I don't know. Over here we got a inconsistency on A7, which is also the address line. Over up here is A11, which is also on the address line. But we also have A13 again. So A13 has a problem on 3 chips. On this one, and this one. Now, even though I don't have these chips in, I ordered them, but they still seem like they're testing okay. But it could still be the cause of the short to the reset. And we can check the reset. The only reset from the CPU goes to J9, which is pin 13. So just to prove it is resetting. Here's J9. Here's pin 13. And as you can see, it's resetting. And I'm getting that reset on basically every signal on the board. So it's come down to a matter of eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Because all the testing that I've done with a logic probe seems that everything is really working like it should, even though I'm not getting the correct signals on certain areas. Okay. So what I think I'm going to do is and I did print out the data sheets with the the truth tables of all this, and I did go through everything. And even on the 8-input NOR gate, which is the MC14078 right here. That's what this is right here. So, all right. I'm making this too long, I know. Maybe I'll edit some of it out if it's not relevant when I go back over it. Okay, so here's the analysis. U11 pin 3 is A13, which is a problem. U12 pin 3 is A13, that's a problem. U13 pin 5 is A13, which is a problem. We have a problem on U16 pin 9, which is address 7, A7, pin 2, A11, pin 5, which is the IORQ with a line over it. That's a problem. And that's all on U16. U3 pin 4, also address 8, A8. U4 pin 9, A11, and pin 2, A13 again. So we have a problem on A13 on U4. Well, actually, U4 we have three problems. Oh, here we go. Possible bad. A13 is U4, U11, U12, and U13 are all problems on all of them. So it could be U4, U11, U12, or U13. We also have a problem at A7, which is U8 and U16. We have a problem at A11 on U16, U13, and U4. We have a problem on A8 on U10 and U3. And then we have a problem on A11, U13, and U4. And then we have the bus acknowledgement and the bus request on U10, which isn't correct. Okay, that's our problem signals. So when we break it down, the U4 has three times has a problem. U10 has 2 problems. U11 1, U12 1, U13 3, U8 1, and U16 2. So we should start with either U4 or U13 because they have the most common problems. Okay. So what I've decided to do in a nutshell is here's U13, here's U11, here's U12. Since I know I don't have a problem with any of the ROMs, I'm going to hold off on replacing these 2 right now. I think I'm going to start, well, it's a toss-up between U11 and U13, and maybe U4. Anything that's got the A13 signal on it, basically. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to replace or pull out U13 and check it. And if that's not a problem, I'll probably go with U11, and then I'll probably go with U12, just to try to eliminate A13 as being the cause of the reset. So that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. So I'll be back when I come across something. Well, it's been about a week now, and I finally got my parts in. The 2 ICs that I didn't have, which were the 74 LS133 and the MC, let's see, 14078. So I got those two chips in. All right, let me get you caught up on what's going on here. This board has been a real pain, and I can't blame the board because it's looking like I can only blame myself. Let me explain. Okay. When I left off just a few minutes ago to you, of course it's been a week for me, I have been going over this board and the schematics and the data I got from the logic probe. And in the last segment, I know I said I was going to start with U13 right here and replace it. Well, I did. Anything with the green circle around it, I replaced. Yeah, I got on a IC replacement kick. I said earlier that I went over everything on the schematics here, every chip on the board, and it looked like to me, going by the data sheet and the truth tables and everything, that everything was working like it should. It's just that the signals were not what they should be compared to a good board and a bad board. Okay, so I should have went with my gut instinct, like I said on the last video, because it turns out I was right. Every one of these chips I replaced, U13, then I replaced U11, then I replaced U12. All three of these were good in my tester. So I went ahead anyway and put a socket in and put new chips in. And then I got mulling over everything again, and I said, well, at least I know these three chips are replaced and they're good. So let me do a few more. Anywhere I had the bad signal, I took the most likely what I thought might be the problem, and I started replacing chips. I replaced U3, U4, let's see, I replaced U6, U1, which is here, here, and here. I replaced U8, which is right here, here, and here. And when I got these two chips in, I went ahead and replaced those. And at last resort, I replaced U14, which is another 74LS138, which is just like the first three I replaced. So everything on the schematic you see a green circle around, I replaced. All those chips were good when I tested them. I couldn't test them until I took them, off the board anyway. But like I said, initially, probing them with the logic probe, they seemed like they were good, even though, like I say, it had a bad signal. And I couldn't figure this thing out. What was going on? So then I got thinking. I said, well, maybe I can simplify things a little bit. I went ahead and took the 4 EEPROMs out, the 4 EEPROMs for the Gorf program ROMs, took them off the board completely, and replaced X1, which is the number 1 ROM slot here, with a test ROM. Okay. Back when I was testing RAM boards, before I had the RAM cards, the test cards, I had burnt these test ROMs here. This one here is from Dave Turner, and I also had the Mark Speth one, which is I got in this working board right here. So I figured, you know, it's supposed to run with just this one ROM chip, and that would simplify things. And as you can see, the program is running. Okay, well, I first put Dave's chip in, and I got the same thing. The board was just resetting, and the screen was blank. So I said, well, that wasn't a very good idea. So then I took the one that Mark made, and I put that in the board, and it worked kind of. So let me go ahead and pull this test ROM, Mark's test ROM, out of the good board and put it in the bad board, and let me show you what it's doing. Okay, now I'm put Mark's test ROM in, and I got the ready to fire up, so let me fire it up. Now, look what we got. Let me kind of zoom in on it there. As you can see, it's running the test program, but you got these vertical lines running from top to bottom with the bars across it. Now that kind of reminds me of a RAM problem. Although my RAM boards are good, but we do have 8 2114 SRAMs on the board here. So I'm pretty sure that these RAMs, if we look on the board here they are, it's 8 of them. They have data lines going to them, and the data lines go to the ROMs. Well, now I only got one ROM in, so I've isolated everything down to this one ROM, so I don't have to worry about none of the other 7 ROM positions. So what I decided to do is I figured that the CPU board was probably accessing that ROM now that it's not resetting, because the problem before was the thing was in reset and it never would boot. But now it's not resetting. Well, maybe that had something to do with some of the other ROMs being, you know, all 8 were installed on the board. I don't know, but I said, well, maybe I got something to work with. So what I did was, got me another set of sheets here for the logic probe. I figured, let me run another test, check every chip with the logic probe, and see how that compares to the one when I had the program ROMs in. Then I got to thinking, I said, well, maybe what I should do in the other set, because I tested all the RAM and the RAM were good, and I knew all the ROMs were good, I didn't do any logic probe sampling on any of the pins. So I got thinking, I said, well, maybe I ought to start there and find out what the pins, the addresses on the and the data lines coming off the ROMs are doing, and what the RAM is doing. So I did that. And let's see. Here is the results for the X1, which is the number 1 ROM, which is the test ROM here. I probed all 24 pins. On the left here is the bad board, and on the right is the same ROM and the good board. So as you can see, working our way down from pin 1 all the way down, everything is identical. Basically everything is a high-low pulse, except pin 12 is, of course, the negative to ground. And pin 1, they're both low. So that, I guess, is normal. But when we get down to pin 23, pin 23 is low, and it's supposed to be a high-low pulse. And then I got looking, what is pin 23? All right. Pin 23 is an address line A8. Okay. Well, A8 is one of the address lines I had problems with. I marked it red here. Here it is right here where it goes to the RAM. Goes to pin 16 of all the RAM. Now the address lines are tied in, each one of the address lines are tied into all of the RAM chips, just like the ROMs. The ROM chips, they're kind of like daisy chained. All the address lines run from socket to socket, from pin to pin, so they're all tied together. Okay. Then, next, I probed the RAM chips. And I'll start with X21 right here. Okay. And on the left is the bad board, and on the right's the good board. Okay. It starts out fine. They're all high-low pulsing. Pin 8 is high on both of them. Pin 9 is low. That's the ground on the chip, because this is a 18 pin chip. 2114 RAM. Okay, pin 10 is high. 11 again, high-low pulse. Back to high-low pulsing. Then we get to pin 16 is low. And it's supposed to be a high-low pulse. 17 is low on both of them. 18 is high on both. 18 is the VCC, the power, 5 volt. So then I got looking at, well, what is pin 16? So we go here, and pin 16, it's a little hard to read on the schematics, but I got a better schematic that I look at to, when you get something like this that is unreadable, I got a better schematic that I look at. That is A8. Okay, so I got a low on A8 here, and I got a low on A8 over here on the ROM. So I got my meter out, and I did some continuity checks, and I found out that pin 1, which is address line A7, which is right next to A8, which is pin 23, which on the board here, A7 pin 1 up here in the corner, and pin 23 is on this side, the second one down from the top. So those two address lines run underneath the chip, underneath the socket, right next to each other, and run in between pin 24 and, well, it might run between 23 and 22. I'm not sure, but pin 1 is daisy chained to each one of the sockets, and somewhere else on the board it's tied in and it's daisy chained to this row of sockets. So I did a continuity check, and I checked pin 1 and I checked pin 23. Guess what? They're shorted together. That's right, they're shorted. Even with the chip taken out, I can take the chip out, they're shorted. I can take my continuity checker, put it on pin 1, and I go down to pin 16 down here on any one of these RAM chips. It's a dead short between them. And pin 1 and pin 23 are shorted together on the ROM. And pin 1 and pin 3 are shorted to pin 16 on every one of the RAMs. So I think I've found my problem. I haven't verified that yet, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, why do I think this happened? Well, a little over a year ago, I was testing these boards. If you go back, actually it was in December of December 21st, 2020 is when I posted the video when I first started testing these 3 Gorf board sets. And you can go back and watch that video if you want to. It's called Testing Gorf Boards. And I went through and tested all of the boards of all 3 of the sets that I have. And this ROM board did not work. Now, before I decided to start fixing the boards and before I started to video any of the repairs, I looked at this board here, and I forgot I'd done this. This board had masked ROMs on it, and the masked ROMs, the legs on them were rotted. The one in X1 right here, the legs had actually broken off. When I pulled the chip out, the legs were stuck in the socket. So I replaced this socket. Now, at the time, I didn't replace any other socket on the board except for one. This socket right here. So I replaced, back in December of 2020, I replaced this socket and I replaced this socket. And because the only reason I replaced this socket is because I put my chip puller on the chip to pull the ROM out. And I actually, instead of grabbing underneath the edge of the ROM, I got underneath the edge of the socket, and when I pulled the top off of the socket. And I got a good look at all the pins because I'd pulled the plastic cover off of the socket, and the pins look good. So that's why I decided not to replace any of the other chips. But I did replace this one because I'd pulled the top off of the socket. And I'd replaced this one because the legs had rotted off in it. So I think I created this whole problem myself. The other day, when I remembered this, before I remembered this, because I'd forgotten that I'd replaced these sockets, but I got looking and I said, well, these sockets here are different than these sockets. But the other day I went ahead and I pulled this socket back off to check to see if I had any shorts, and that wasn't the problem. I went ahead and I pulled the rest of these sockets and replaced them and put new sockets in. I had the same problem. It didn't fix a thing. But I stopped short because I was confident that there was nothing wrong with this socket right here. But evidently, somewhere underneath this socket, the solder has made contact with the trace between these 2 pins here, so that pin 1 and pin 23 are shorted. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and pull the board out. I'm going to pull this socket and see if our short goes away. So I'll be right back. Okay, before I desolder the socket here, I'm going to show you what the short is doing. If I put the probe on pin 1 of any one of the ROM sockets and put it on pin 23, you can hear the short. All right, I can put it down here. You can hear it. Pin 23, pin 1. Pin 1 is supposed to be connected, but 23 is not supposed to be connected to 1. Same here. Now, if I go down to the RAM, put it on pin 16 on any one of the RAM, there you go. And I can move this to 23, still shorted. So those pins are shorted, and I'm 99.99% sure that it's under this socket right here. So let me go ahead and pull it off and we'll find out. Okay, well, I've got the socket off, and what you're looking at is where the problem is. Can you see it? It is right there, a little solder bridge between that trace and this pin on the socket, pin 23. That's pin 24. That's the plus 5 volt. If it had went the other way, it would have been shorted to 5 volts. Let me get you in a little bit closer here. See it right there? Just that's all it takes. Now, how did that get like that, I wonder? That's weird. But that's how it happens sometimes. I guess the only thing I can figure is when this one right here is the 5 volt, and it's on the 5 volt rail, which is really just like a ground area with a heavy ground. All this is copper, so it takes a whole lot more heat to heat this pin up and solder it. So I guess I had my iron up kind of high, and these holes are kind of big, and the pins on these sockets are very small. I don't know if I can get one in here for comparison. Let me see if I can. Okay, there's a socket pin, and as you can see, the hole is a lot bigger than that skinny little pin is. So when the board is upside down and you're soldering, sometimes if you put too much heat on it, I guess the heat will travel down that leg, and the solder will travel down the leg, and I guess it pooled underneath the socket, and it pooled enough to where it just, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. I guess it's possible maybe I didn't clean the board up good before I put the socket on. Maybe that was like that when I desoldered it. I don't know. It's hard to say, but that should be the short right there. So let me take my soldering iron here. And I'll come in here. Let me back it up a little bit. And I'll just touch it on here. See, this takes a lot more heat to heat this up, because that's all copper right there. All right. The short is gone. But let's be sure. Now we can go ahead and put the meter on it and find out. So let me get the meter. And we'll put it on pin 1. put it on pin 23. No beep. So that fixed it. Now if I put on 23 and go over here and hit it on 16, there we go. That pin is supposed to have continuity to the chip, and it does. So, okay. All right, let me go ahead and put a new socket on it, and then I'm going to decide whether I need to replace those other sockets or not. Yeah, we'll see. First, let's see if we can get it running just like it is, because I don't think there's nothing wrong with those other sockets. Okay, well, the socket is in, and let's go ahead and give it a quick test again. Put it on pin 1 here. Pin 1, we should get a beep. Put it on 23, we should not get a beep. We do not get a beep. Okay, put it on 23, we'll go to pin 16. Yes. 17, no. 16, yes. Okay, I think we got it. So, instead of putting the test ROM in like I've been using, I'm going to go for broke. I done laid out the Gorf, the full set of Gorf ROMs. So I'm just going to put them in, go for broke. Like I say, I still don't know if those other sockets are good. I did replace the ones on the top side here. And I may go ahead and change those. After all, what could go wrong, right? Yeah. All right, here's the new socket. Okay. And one more. Okay. Let's go ahead and put it in. Let's cross the fingers. We'll turn it on. See what happens. Oh boy, look at there. We got Gorf. Well, I'm here to tell you, this one kind of rattled my cage a little bit. I figured that this was going to be a piece of cake. And I think it would have been, if it hadn't been for the fact that I sabotaged myself a little over a year ago by when I changed that socket. Now, I still wonder, did I put that socket in without checking the board to make sure it had shorts? And after you replace the sockets, especially on ROMs and whatever, you want to check for shorts. But I normally just check for shorts between the adjacent pins. I didn't really think about checking for shorts from pin from one side between the pins of the other. So that's something to think about. I guess when you do change sockets, especially ROM sockets or any sockets really, you need to make sure you get the board nice and clean, remove all the old solder, make sure all the traces are separated, make sure you don't have anything, shorting out. So maybe I did, maybe it happened when I soldered the new one in, maybe the solder ran down the leg of the socket and just pulled up and bridged over. I don't know. That's a possibility, but anyway, it happens. It happens to the best of them. Let me know if you've ever had a similar situation with sockets. I'm sure, I'm not a professional. I'm a newbie, basically. I mean, I've been collecting and fixing games for a long time now, a long time. But while I've done some board repair in the past, I'm not someone that does it on a daily basis or a weekly basis or usually a monthly basis. It's usually, every 2-3 years maybe, But here lately I've just trying to get caught up on some stuff that I been putting off for a while. Let me turn the volume up, make sure we got sound here. My sound came unplugged. Thought it was awful quiet there. There we go. Okay. And we just make sure we got sound. I'm pretty sure I can hear it. It's up kind of loud though. Did it just reset? Maybe we're not finished. Huh. Well, that ain't good. Maybe those other ROM sockets are bad. Okay. Further investigation. Hold tight. Okay, well, you're not going to believe this, but I guess I did it again. When I just finished putting that new socket in right here, I checked it to make sure that the short wasn't there, that we fixed the short. And of course the short wasn't. So I went ahead and stuck the ROMs in, fired it up, and you've seen what it was doing. It was resetting or cutting the attract mode short. So that looked like, I figured, well, these other ROMs sockets that I didn't replace were probably bad. This one, and this one. So I started to just go ahead and pull them, and I said, wait a minute. I did it again. When I put this new socket in, I didn't check all the pins for continuity. So that's what I just did. I checked every one of the pins for continuity to make sure that I had no breaks in the daisy chain there. And sure enough, pin number 4 on the socket that I just replaced had continuity with pin 4 over here, and had continuity with pin 4 on these up here, but this and this one, no continuity. Rest of them were fine, but just pin 4. So I said, well, what the heck, I'm gonna have to pull that socket off again. But instead I just went ahead and pin 4, I reflowed the solder on that pin, even though it looked good, but evidently it just wasn't making contact on the side of the pin that goes over in this direction. So I reflowed the solder, then I checked continuity again. Everything is lovely. So I think I'm good to go now. I went ahead and put the chips back in, ready to fire it up, and cross our fingers. Let's see what happens. We've been here before, but it didn't have continuity on pin 4, and I'm pretty confident that that's the problem. So let's see. Phew. Okay. Well, I was starting to sweat again for a minute, but yeah, I think this time we finally figured it out. And that just goes to show you, you have to recheck your work or double, triple check your work to make sure things are right, because no matter how confident you are that you did a good job, you still can make a mistake. So that's just another one of those lessons, and that's how we learn. We learn from our mistakes, and hopefully we won't make too many of those mistakes again. So, yeah. Boy, this one has sure been a learning experience, that's for certain. But all is good in the Gorf world. We now have another Rom board fixed, so I can scratch this one off my list. And I gained a little bit of experience working with it, and so that's the name of the game. So, and that's another reason why a lot of people that do board repairs don't like working on boards that somebody else has been into, because these kind of things can come up. You know, it just makes it more work for them, because before they can move forward with a repair, they have to go back and recheck the work somebody else has already done, because they don't know who did the work in many cases, and what, you know, how good they were, how good their work was. And even the professionals sometimes has these kind of problems. So like I said before, if you've ever worked on the boards and you've had these little things creep up that just, you know, kind of throws you for a loop, let me know. And okay, well, I'm gonna end it right here, because I know this video was probably getting up there, and I guess nobody likes a long video, but hopefully if you stuck with it, you know, you gained a little bit of experience with me and a little bit of knowledge on things you need to do and things you shouldn't do and things that can happen when things go wrong. So there you go. Well, this has just been another arcade fix. A hard one, but we got it. Have you had your arcade fix today?